It happened on a Saturday morning, January 13th, 2018, a date thousands of Hawaiians will never forget. The sun had barely risen. Some people were jogging along beaches, others grabbing coffee, others still were asleep. And then, the silence was shattered. Phones buzzed, TVs froze, sirens screamed. An emergency message appeared across every screen. Ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. Imagine that. No context, no explanation, just doom. In an instant, normal life collapsed into mayhem. Families rushed to basements, people ducked into sewers, garages, anywhere they could hide. Some wept, some prayed. Others made final phone calls, whispering their last goodbyes. A man named Jack, who was visiting Honolulu, got a call from his brother. Get inside now. But Jack, he was standing barefoot in the sand. If it's coming, he said, I'm not running from it. Military bases went silent. Social media exploded with fear. In the tense atmosphere between the US and North Korea at the time, people assumed the worst. This was the start of World War III. But it wasn't. There was no missile, no enemy, no war. Just an error. A botched drill accidentally sent out as a real alert. 38 long minutes passed before officials issued a correction. False alarm, no threat. For those who lived it, the terror was unforgettable. But oddly enough, this wasn't the first time Americans had fallen into mass panic because of a broadcast. To find the first, we need to rewind back. 80 years. The year was 1938. Television was still a novelty, mostly absent from homes. But radio, that was the heart of every living room. Each night, millions gathered around to hear music, news, and stories from across the world. And on the evening of October 30th, one broadcast would change everything. The night before Halloween was filled with festive energy. Children planned costumes. Adults prepped candy and carved pumpkins. It was a Sunday, a time for quiet evenings at home. On NBC, families were enjoying The Chase and Sanborn Hour, a popular comedy variety show. When the show cut to a commercial, listeners spun the dial looking for something new. And many landed on CBS. At first they heard music, a live performance by an orchestra supposedly broadcasting from a New York hotel. But within minutes, that program was interrupted. The music faded. A serious voice came on the air. A scientist had observed explosions on Mars. Strange bursts of blue gas were erupting from the planet's surface. He described it as a possible jet of flame, moving toward Earth. It was bizarre. But people listened. Some raised eyebrows, others shrugged. Then the music returned. But again, the orchestra was interrupted. This time, the bulletin was more urgent. Reports had come in of a meteorite crashing near Grover's Mill, New Jersey. A reporter, Carl Phillips, was at the scene. What he described was shocking. A giant metal cylinder steaming in a crater. Then, noise, scraping, humming, movement. Something was inside. Listeners across America sat in silence as Phillips gave a play-by-play. It's turning, unscrewing, something's emerging, tentacles, eyes. Suddenly, panic broke through the broadcast. Police were shouting. People were screaming. A heat ray shot out from the object, killing the onlookers. The audio cut off. Then, hauntingly, the music returned, whimsical piano tunes clashing with terror. People who had tuned in late never heard the show's introduction. They didn't know it was fiction. To them, it sounded like a genuine news report. It used real towns, real institutions, and live sound effects. The invasion of Earth by Martians, yes, aliens, was being broadcast as real-time breaking news. More reports followed. Heat rays, toxic gas, tripod war machines marching across New Jersey, railways destroyed, cities burning. Listeners flooded police lines, churches filled with people praying. Others grabbed guns, some fled their homes. In some places, off-duty soldiers ran to their armories, thinking the Germans had attacked. Confused operators tried to calm callers, unaware that the cause of the panic was a fictional radio drama. The culprit? Orson Welles. At just 23 years old, Orson Welles was already a rising star in theater and radio. CBS had given him his own show, Mercury Theater on the Air, where he adapted classic novels for radio. For Halloween weekend, he picked a sci-fi horror tale, The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. But Wells wasn't interested in a dull retelling. He wanted something gripping, something modern. So he and his team reimagined the story as a fake news broadcast. They added live reports, urgent interruptions, and ambient sounds. The goal? To make it feel real. And it worked. Too well. By the time the show hit intermission, CBS staff realized something was wrong. Police had shown up at their studios. Phones rang off the hook. People were terrified. Some were reportedly hospitalized for shock. Others thought it was the end of the world. Rumors flew about mass hysteria, even suicides. After the show ended, the studio was swarmed. Officers stormed in. Wells and his team were taken to a back room. The station began collecting and hiding scripts. The next morning, Orson Welles was America's most talked-about man. Some called him a genius. Others demanded his arrest. He held a press conference visibly shaken, insisting the show was never meant to deceive. But the damage was done. The panic had been real, especially in New York and New Jersey. But just how widespread was it? That's still debated. Later, research found many reports may have been exaggerated by newspapers, partly out of rivalry with radio, which was stealing their audience. Some hospitals didn't report any major injuries. Many rumors of chaos couldn't be verified. Still, the shock was enough to trigger government scrutiny. People called for radio censorship, warning that media had too much influence. But others defended Wells, saying the broadcast was brilliant. They argued it wasn't his fault people tuned in late and took it seriously. One listener wrote, "I didn't panic. I didn't jump out a window. I wasn't scared. I just sat and enjoyed a fantastic performance." Another said, "If someone with the brain of a toddler believed it was real, that's on them." Within a year, the world had real war to worry about. Hitler invaded Poland. World War II began. And the fake Martian invasion became just another odd story from a strange decade. But Wells, he became a legend. Hollywood came calling. Just a few years later, he created one of cinema's greatest films, Citizen Kane. Still, War of the Worlds would follow him for life. People always brought it up. Some laughed, some blamed, but everyone remembered. And in later interviews, Wells acknowledged how real the fear had been, and how close it felt to what came after. In one eerie moment, he recalled being in a studio years later when someone burst in yelling, "We interrupt this broadcast. Pearl Harbor has just been attacked." And nobody believed it. They said, "There he goes again," Wells said, shaking his head.